And those up there as well. This afternoon, you going over there? Good, lovely. Resources Corporate Business Overrule Scrutiny Committee. Number 1 on your agenda is apologies and absence for attendance. Also, as my phone's just gone off, I'm always the worst offender on this one before anybody says anything. If you could put it on silent running, because I know some of you use this as something to look at. I'm trying to do something. I've done that one already. So if you can put it on silent running so it doesn't offend anybody else, that would be brilliant. Get in it. Thank you. Right. Attendance and apologies.
Yeah, apologies received from Councillor Curran and Haynes.
Right, thank you.
Could I give apologies in that I have to leave at 3:20 because we're going from get to a meeting that you will arrive late for.
Thank you, Councillor.
School government meeting, but
Yeah.
I will report down. So.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor?
I was talking to Veronica this morning, and I don't think she's going to be coming here this afternoon because she has a problem with her knees, as you know, and it was playing up a bit. I've guessed that. I was speaking to her and she told me about it, so, and she's not here, so, okay.
So, we're making an assumption there. Okay, item number 2, declarations of interest over to them there.
Thank you,
Chair. Way over there.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's the... it's only on item 5. It's members' small schemes because of the complexities of the code, you find yourself scrutinising some of your own small scheme donations. And, of course, the Ethics and Standards Committee has given you a dispensation to allow you to do that. And I think that would affect you, Chair, Councillor Seaborn, Councillor Powell and Councillor Bevan. I think I've picked up that you've got donations listed there. So that's the only declaration I would ask that members agree.
Thank you. Yep.
I just noticed one on here. If you're a member of a trust or something, for example, the Lantarnan Grange and Arts Centre, which I'm vice chair of, somebody's giving some money to it, I said I must give them a thanks for that, but whoever it is, oh, right then, I want to know some year. I suppose you've got to say that you're on that as well.
Yes, I suppose you're scrutinising a donation to an organisation. So yes, in relation to that. So you make that declaration.
I'll go through them all and tick off which ones it is in a moment and come back on it.
Which will be covered by the dispensation in any event, I think.
I think you've opened up a can of worms here when you started that. Thank you. No. Yeah.
Can I suggest, are you talking about the small scheme donations?
Yeah, not as a donor, but as... Second one down, CMIG. I'm a trustee of CMIG, and a few people have given to that.
Yes, yeah. I think perhaps as you go through them and you look at them, perhaps if members want to declare that link, I think we'll have to catch them in relation to that.
Can we save that for afterwards if you're still here? Otherwise, you can... Right, thank you. Okay.
We normally do declare, but it's most relevant just before the item that you take part for. So perhaps in these circumstances you can wait till then, Councillor Barnett.
Thank you. I believe you're going now. Thank you. Thank you. Any other items that you want to declare, if you think they come up, declare in the meeting as usual. Thank you. Item number 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Page 5. Have you looked at page 5? Yeah, thank you. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10 and page 11, and I have been alerted to 7.3 on here. There are 2 items on here One, it says the chair thanked all for attending in the committee and closed the meeting at 4 o'clock. And then the other bit which says the chair thanked all for attending the committee and closed the meeting on time not specified. The bottom one apparently is not so. That's been noted, hasn't it? Yeah. So anybody, somebody like to do that as a correct record with that bit that I've just noted there?
Move, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back and look at any points it might be rising. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11. Anybody got anything they want to raise? Otherwise, I'll go on to the next item on the agenda. Great. Thank you. Item number 4, action sheet.
As you'll see from the action sheet, the responses to the recommendations with regard to the workforce plan recommendations were sent out to members on the 2nd of February. I haven't received any feedback as yet, but if you do want to forward any on to me, please send me an email.
Right. Okay. Agenda item number 5, members' small schemes, which is what we were just discussing. If you'd like to go through that. That surprised me because that's normally further down the agenda. So we'd like to look at page number 15. Anybody got anything they want to declare in that?
Yeah.
Which I believe.
I'm on CMEG as well, and in my capacity as a community councillor, I'm collaborating with Torvine Play Schemes for the delivery of services for Cwmbran Community Council. Llantarn and Grange Arts Centre, I'm Vice Chair.
Thank you. I was supposing that on that score I'd better do the Cwmbran Community Council as well while I'm at it. Yeah. And there's a few of us here. Thank you.
Chair, I'm a parishioner at Our Lady and St David's, and I'm a supporter when I pay a fee.
Yeah, I'm on the board of Torvine Museum Trust as well.
$17.
I'm Treasurer Tox, Chair.
Yeah, I'm Vice Chair of TOG.
Thank you. Page 18. Anybody in here at all? No, you're.
Yeah, sorry. At the bottom of the page, the brownies and guides, I'm an ambassador for Gwent Guides.
Right, and then page 19, which
Yeah, sorry.
I think you and I have mentioned all the way through on this. We're okay.
President of Pontywydd Ladies Choir.
Yeah. Right. Any more? Hugh?
Thank you, Chair. I can't actually see it on this report in terms of which one relates to me, because the only donation I can see was on a page concerning a donation that was made to Friends of St Anne's Hospice, which was not actually a personal or prejudicial interest, but because Linda mentioned me at the beginning of the meeting, perhaps there's another one that she was referring to. So yes, I need to declare an interest, but I'm not 100% sure on which item.
Thank you, that's been noted. And Mary, did you want another one?
No, it's going to, you on Glenn's side? It's last.
Yeah, we noted all of those. They are names against those anyway, by the look of them. Right. Everybody finished on this? Thank you. Brilliant. My microphone back on. Agenda item number 6, we're on now to the main meat of the agenda, which is the update report, progress and impact of accepted recommendations. And the first item on there, it's getting ready to come down, is Mr. Robert Wellington on external funding. Well, I know who you are, isn't it?
Sorry, can I just point out to the Scrutiny Committee, obviously, as you will see, they are the progress report on the impact and the progress of the recommendations. So, as such, you're not re-scrutinising the issues, only the recommendations and the impact and progress that they've had.
Yeah. Unless we did obviously have a pre-meeting, so a couple of us have grabbed some of these questions. You've got the questions there. If you feel free to put any things that occur to you in the meanwhile that are burning. I'm looking at various people down the end, and you. The first question I've given myself to ask the question. I'll let Rob introduce himself very quickly. If you probably remember from the scrutiny anyway, it was nearly a couple of years ago.
Hello everyone, Rob Wellington, Head of European Policy and External Funding.
Okay, first question we've got on recommendation 2, and that's on page 26, January 2016 update was, the project has not scored highly enough to secure allocation of resource from the SRS. Why has it not scored highly enough?
Can I hand that over to Ed?
Yeah.
Because Ed took the...
There we go. Thanks, Chair. I chair the ICT Programme Board, and there's a well-established process for getting SRS resources allocated to ICT projects that Torfaen wish to progress. It's a limited amount of resource, and the process that we've put in place tries to identify the issues that are of greatest significance to us at a given point. Some of the biggies that have scored more highly than the external funding database currently are things like replacement system for DRAIG, the social care system, a new planning and public protection system, so big whole organisation pieces. And I think in terms of the scoring on this particular issue, it was probably dented a little bit by the fact that you've already got a system that serves a purpose to an extent. So when it comes to our fortnightly sprints, which the SRS run, they decide how many points each system should require to be progressed. And when we get any semblance of downtime at all, that resource is allocated towards this, but the fact remains it is part of a much bigger, more important set of systems currently, and on that basis we can only resource it as and when the opportunity arises.
My supplement to that is, when was that decision made?
The decision on the scoring was made at the point at which the business case was produced, so I would conclude on that basis the moment at which Rob progressed the business case beyond the discussion with the committee, it goes into the scoring criteria and the resources are allocated accordingly.
When would that have been?
Well, I think looking at the documentation here, it would be early in 2015.
Thank you. Any more supplements? Mary?
Schools in particular, if they're not on iLearn Wales, have they migrated to a different supplying organisation?
No, it's different. We're on Europe.
It says the templates that has been produced has been put on hold. What benefit will there be from placing it within phase 2 of?
I think it was just that it would be an automated system. What we could do, which it says here, is that the template's been produced. It's in hard copy form, and what we would be doing really is sending it around in an email. The development of phase 2 would have wrapped that around a whole system, and so I just think that we've been advised by SRS that it would be better placed there. But as I've said here, we're quite prepared to circulate that template electronically. It would be a Word document, and it'd be sent out by email, which would be slightly different to, I think, what SRS were hoping for with phase 2.
Any supplement on that? Right, the next question is not the bullet point, but the next one down. Would somebody like to take that? That's the overall summary question. Yeah.
What are the prospects for future development of phase 2 of the EFT?
Again, I don't know whether I'm best placed to answer this, or Ed really, given what Ed has just said. Obviously, we're at a different place now, aren't we, from where we were 2 years ago, March of 2014. Since then, we've had all the austerity measures, and I think priorities have changed, workloads have changed. But I mean, in terms of actually answering that question specifically, I don't know whether Ed.
I think the prospects always exist. Reiterating what I've said previously, we've got a limited amount of development resource within the SRS, and we've got a set of priority systems that currently outweigh the external funding database. But each one of those systems will be implemented, developed, signed off, and at that point, the priority scoring for this particular system will raise up the list and will get more resource than it's getting currently. So it's on the list, it will be delivered, but it will be dependent on delivering the rest of the systems that score more highly than it.
Supplementary question, anybody? Well, that's external funding done then, if that's the case. Thank you, Rob. Next question is information technology, which is Matt. Are you there, Matt? So it's Matt Lucas. Lewis, I get there. I've done that, haven't I? Sorry, Matt.
Scott's got too much hair to be.
He has, isn't it? Matt Lewis, sorry. Sorry about that. How did I do that? Introduce yourself and your proper name.
I'm Matt Lewis, the only IT person in the room.
That's your laugh this afternoon, anyway. Silly chair. Okay, somebody like to kick off with the first question there.
First of all, we've got 4 schools obviously migrated onto iLearn Wales platform. I'd like to know what sort of alternative suppliers some of the other schools are engaged with, if any. And I have another one particularly directed towards the effectiveness with the PRU, but we need to, obviously members will be interested in what data we have perhaps to explain the impact that it's had on the schools that are engaged. But I would in particular like to make a point about the PRU afterwards.
Okay, so Torfaen primaries have always been on a centralised infrastructure. So the iLearn Wales platform is almost the next step on from that. It's a newer, it's part of the original iLearn Wales project that secondaries took advantage of. Because there was so much capacity on that system, we wanted to move the primaries onto it as well. And as it alludes to in this response here, there are network problems, meaning that we can't move all the primaries onto that new infrastructure. So the 4 we have done are taking advantage of the new infrastructure because those schools in particular had aging infrastructures or something new was being done in the school which allowed us to move them at that point in time. So it's not that they're with a different supplier, it's just that they're on a different technology platform. So I guess it's the kind of computers and storage they're sat on. One's still on the old, 4 are on the new.
With the PRU in particular, I think the fact that the young people who are attending that educational base come from a variety of schools, think it's superb in that working together through iLearn Wales, they can return to their schools or a different school when the time is right, which is obviously the ultimate aim of the PRU, not to keep people in that base, but to return them eventually when they're able to cope for whatever reason in either their original school or a different school. And you think that's going to be very, very helpful. I mean, I think it is, the fact that they're on iLearn Wales. Certainly the governing bodies I sit on if they have any complaints about our IT. It's always to do with connectivity. It's not to do with the support that your staff and technicians are giving when they go to the schools. They're full of praise for that. But will we be able to assess the difference that's been made with those schools?
And I think the point is right. So the kind of bottleneck that we have is the network. So there's a new contract that's been let nationally across Wales called PSBA2. So at the end of January, they put a new core network in place, which allows for these quicker speeds. So it's almost kind of, instead of a little country lane, it's now kind of big motorway. So we've got lots more capacity to do the things we need to do. There's a big bottleneck at the moment with BT because everyone's been waiting for the new network to be put in place. So I know, because we've also looked after Monmouthshire and now Blaenau Gwent is coming up as well, we know that there's big bottlenecks for quotes in those organisations. So Monmouth, for example, are waiting for 33 quotes for every single school in Monmouthshire to upgrade their primary network as well. We know Blaenau Gwent have got 11 requests in, and it's the same right across Wales. So we have got a little bit of time before we'll get the quotes back and the work done to increase the speeds of these network connections. But once it's done, we'll be moving everybody across on the Isle of Wales network. And you're exactly right, it gives that kind of seamless education provision that they can be based anywhere and get to the same files, the same homework, the same curriculum, the same system that they use in the school they came from.
Thank you there. Any supplements on that one? We do have another question there, which has somewhat been answered. So I'll put the end of that on there. It says you're in discussion about PSBA and upgrading, but start of the next academic year, how is that progressing? I'm sort of paraphrasing it because you've just sort of semi-answered that.
Yep. So the core was approved from a Welsh Government perspective January 21st, I believe it was. So that now allows us to get some quotes. So Steve Jeans has met with the kind of senior people in BT and PSBA to find out what the timeline is on progression of the quotes, at least to get the lines installed. There's a 90-day install then, so we're hoping that, as it says in here, that all the lines and all the work will be done to upgrade the lines by the start of the academic year for 2016-17.
Any more questions on this one? No, you look very... yeah. Okay. Thank you, Matt. I'm sorry about that. I should have down on that one for a long time. Cheers. Okay. Next item on the agenda is channel shift. That's Mr. Edmonds. That's pulling that trap again. Would you like to introduce yourself, Ed?
Afternoon, members. My name is Matt Lucas. Couldn't resist that. I'm Richard Edmonds, Head of Strategic Services and Democratic Services, and channel shift sits within my area.
Somebody like to go with the bullet point number one question? You? I'm looking at you. Yeah, you might as well be nearest.
Thank you, Chair. This is question is concerning recommendation 1. January 2016 on the update on page 30. Digital transformation channel shift strategy is now in draft and will be circulated. What timescales and how can members what are the timescales and how can members input into the draft before it is finalised?
Timescales are imminent, really, members. We have a draft. It's been through our sort of final check-in processes. It's not been developed as quickly as I would have liked because I think it's been flanked largely by us doing a lot of stuff as well. So, you know, the draft has been informed by the work we've been doing around My Council Services and Mobile Worker. But we now have a draft. It's ready for circulation within the next few weeks. Looking at this before I came in today, I did wonder whether it was something that perhaps the committee would want to look at specifically at one of its future meetings. But if that's going to be too difficult with regards to your work programme, I'm happy to circulate via email. I'll take comments in that format. And if you do want to get together either within a forum like this or outside, happy to do so.
Any supplement on that one? Okay, the next bullet point. Can we take that one, please?
Impact shows that levels of the online self-service is increasing, but to what extent have levels increased? Do you have any sort of, numbers?
Yeah. think we probably need to reword the name of this particular item, because we're seeing channel growth rather than channel shift. I think at the moment, in an average month, we've seen our telephone demand increase from around 5,000 to 6,000 calls up to nearer 10,000. We opened ourselves up via the app to try and migrate some of that telephony contact online. We're now seeing around 3,000 or so contacts on average a month coming in via the app, which is a very decent number. But we're still seeing telephony levels at around the 9,000-10,000 mark. So we've actually created more opportunity for more people to interact with us, which is proving problematic at the minute. So good levels of demand, not yet great levels of shift.
Okay, who would like to come on the next bullet point, which I think rides in on that?
Yeah. Well, I'll combine it, if I may, Chair, with the last one. And it's remarks that have been made by correspondents in the local newspaper, etc., about the telephony system, which they think is great. They can identify, obviously, the service area. But there was a suggestion it might have been better just once to ask, do you wish this to come, the message to be given in Welsh or English? Because some people, particularly those who might have hearing difficulties, find it rather onerous to sit through translations for about, 3 or 4 departments before they get to the button they want to push.
Yeah, I'll deal with that. I mean, obviously the interface was set up with the advice from the Welsh Language Service on how to do it. I'd previously mooted the opportunity to perhaps put the option for you to exchange or engage with customer services in Welsh as an option in its own right, but we were advised that wouldn't be appropriate. So what we've set up is in accordance with the guidance we've received, but what I've subsequently found myself doing is just making sure that members and members of the public understand that when you know what the option is, you don't have to wait. So if you're regularly ringing about a waste issue, as soon as you pick the phone up and the options start, you press option 3, you cut all of the rest of that stuff out as if you were engaging with a bank. I'm not saying it's perfect currently. I think we introduced the new telephony system as an experiment to try and help us with the demand we were receiving before Christmas. And I think we've got some opportunities moving forward to improve that. But for now, we followed the advice we were given. I will take back the feedback from you, and we'll see what we can do. But as a short-term temporary measure, if you know what option you want, please don't wait for the Welsh-English versions to be trotted out. Just press the number and you go straight through.
I think perhaps with the older generation, they're used to listening to all the options before they decide, because some problems are cross-departmental, for example, so they need to know what other options there are before they press the right button, and it can be quite a lengthy wait then. I have heard people say that they've just put the phone down because they just couldn't handle it.
I think it's fair to say there's going to be a period of adjustment for us all when it comes to the implications of the Welsh language standards, and we'll do all we can to meet those and make the customer experience as positive as it can be, working within the legislation that is being brought forward.
I mean, I have to say, conversely, in support of our Welsh speakers, if they feel easier in the Welsh language, they might want only to listen to the Welsh language options rather than have to have the English version as well.
It doesn't appear at this stage to meet anyone's needs particularly well.
Any more supplementaries? Okay. Hugh?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had a number of concerned residents contact me, and this was brought up in full council about the time it was taken from the time that the original call that they made was answered by the automated system, and they finally got put through to someone in the relevant area. And the times were being quoted as 45 minutes and 55 minutes before they got through to speak to the relevant person. And I raised that in council, and I think I had response back that the system is going to be reviewed with a view to improving the experience of the callers. You've kind of answered this in part. I think Councillor Kemp also raised the issue in full council about the number of abandoned calls, and my colleague here just touched on that as well, that there was, out of about 10,000 calls, about 3,000 odd were abandoned, so it was a very high number of calls that are not going through to completion. Now, I know you said that there's been an increase effectively overall in the volumes, because we've got more calls coming in, more issues coming in now via the app, but the number of calls coming in hasn't declined at all. So in fact, we've got more demand on the system. But have there been more complaints as a result of the increased levels?
There's a multitude of issues at play here. In response to the issues that were raised pre-Christmas by yourself and Councillor Kemp, we introduced a new telephony system, but I think it was introduced as a sticking plaster. That what we actually wanted to take forward was a system called an IVR, which is a much more professional telephony interface that actually gives members of the public that are engaging with us much more information so they can make better choices at that point. That can be simple things like the average waiting time that you're likely to experience is 3 minutes, 4 minutes. At present, you don't get that information. You just get green sleeves or whatever the tune of the day is playing back to back. So we've got this in currently. I think it's fair to say that since we brought it in, the level of discord has reduced. That there are not so many members making representations to me or people making representations to customer services about the length of time that they're waiting. And to an extent that's improved, because previously when people rang the main switchboard number, they would be in a queue. Then when they got through to the switchboard and asked to speak to someone in customer care, they would go into a second queue. So even by the time you get as far as a customer care agent, you've queued twice and you've been on the phone quite a long time. The system that we've got in place currently, for the vast majority of our customer inquiries, they come in, choose the option and go straight into customer care, so they're effectively queuing one less time than they were previously. And what that's also done is it's taken the important customer inquiries out of the queue that included, could I speak to Ed, could I speak to Councillor Ashley, the main kind of switchboard traffic that you've got. So there have been some improvements, but what we've not seen is a reduction in the demand. The demand in the last 12 months has increased by 50%. That's a massive amount for it to increase. Now, the abandoned call rate is effectively the litmus test for the organisation of whether the things that we're doing are being done well. On occasion, if we do them not so well, we generate a call. So that demand has increased for some reason, and as much as we are doing all we can to bolster the level of staffing resource available to deal with the calls coming in, we've also got another work stream running, working closely with other service areas to look at why people feel immediately like they have to pick the phone up and ring us when this time last year they weren't. So there's a balance there. So in summary, new systems made some improvements. Levels of demand have increased massively and have not decreased since the time we've put the new system in. The newer system again should improve things further, but for me the real benefit will come from understanding why that demand is generated and working with service areas to help turn that stuff off.
Anybody else? No. Yeah, you do the next one. I think you answered our two questions, but you still didn't get hold of it quite well there. Thank you. Jess?
Yeah, just a quick comment before. It seems like the push for channel shift has just resulted in people who wouldn't normally contact us because they don't want to go on the phone will now do it online, but people who still want to use the phone, there's been no impact. So the question is around, we've been to see networking events for various channel shifts. So the question is, how beneficial have they been, and why did we choose those organisations? Was it because they'd done well with their channel shift, or was it just because they were similar to us? So
I think we've chosen them largely as a result of those networking events, seeing what they'd achieved. The one that was most interesting was the DVLA. They have they've recorded some massive shifts in terms of online traffic, but that is largely as a result of them turning off the channels. There are some local authorities that have followed a similar route. I have had discussions with some of those local authorities, and they have gone through very painful, hard yards to get to a place where they almost force or route the majority of traffic online by turning off either the physical contact centres or the telephones. Now that is something that we would aim to avoid. We're trying to develop digital standards and digital services that people gravitate towards in the same way as they do eBay and other applications online. Unfortunately, not everyone thinks of council services in that light. You know, they'll happily sell things via eBay, but won't think about reporting their bin while they're using the phone. But where we are at the moment is probably in the foothills of that. We've got some good online services that people are starting to use. We've not persuaded those that would prefer the telephone to do likewise as yet. Neither do I think we're in a position where, as a council, we want to turn telephone lines off. So really a halfway house to try and encourage more and more people to engage with us through those online services was probably where I'd want to apply myself right now. But there may come a point at some point down the line where, you know, the resources that we've got are so scarce that we've got to make some of those more difficult choices.
Any more on that one? Mary?
Well, just a general overall one, to go sort of turn the coin over or to go offline, if you like. If we've had this increase in telephone calls and online, have we seen a corresponding decrease in those who turn up at customer care centres and want face-to-face dialogue in the first instance?
No, that's been very, very steady. We've not seen an increase. It's been very steady. We've received some positive feedback from the arrangement we've got in Cwmbran, which people seem to enjoy and seem to be getting more out of than just attending a customer care centre. There is a library there, and both services have benefited as a result. But in terms of headcount and footfall, it's pretty much as it was. So we definitely have created an additional channel through which people are now adding to the demand rather than shifting from one to another.
Which is not a bad thing, that people are more engaged in service delivery, even if their, you know, prime focus might be on their own service reception.
Okay, the next couple of bullet points, and we want to take number one of those. Councillor Brooks, want to go?
Right. Listen about with the computer. We're on to the overall summary January the 16 update. Is that where we are then? A number of key activities and projects delivered that have been helping to improve service performance and efficiency, as well as enhancing the quality of customers' online experience when interacting with the council. How are we assessing customer satisfaction?
We're actually doing it at the point of interaction online. We were asked a specific question from Neighbourhood Services a few months back. You know, how can we find out what people think not only of the online service but also of our service? And of course, when you're doing that electronically, you can make it happen at that point, and you can get almost immediate feedback as to people's experiences. And having done that in those areas, we've started to reshape some of the processes that underpin service, where the way we've been doing things hasn't perhaps been of the utmost benefit to the customer. Just to give you an example, when we pass a call from customer services to neighbourhoods, typically when we do that via the telephone, it's a handover. When you do that via the app, the message goes back to the person that's raised the call to say, thanks for your call's been closed, because as far as customer care is concerned, it has been. We've passed it to the back office. So we've had that feedback come back through, we've adjusted that, and now when it gets moved into the back office, that the customer gets a message saying, thanks for your call's been referred to Neighbourhood Services and will be dealt with accordingly. So, I mean, it's just a little example of how we're listening, how we get the kind of feedback straight away, and we're able to use that then to very quickly make changes to the services and the processes in ways that are perhaps more difficult in other channels.
The follow-on from that relates, I think you've just answered it, quite frankly, with regard. It's with the mobile pilots, how do you live, now live in neighbourhood service, any indication as to how these are working? You've just alluded to that a little bit.
I have to an extent. I guess what we're talking about are two different parts to the system. What we've discussed previously is really about the inbound stuff, so people raising inquiries with us and those inquiries being passed to the back office. The mobile worker pilot then is when that information gets into the back office, can we get it to the frontline operative as quickly as possible and get the job sorted out as quickly as possible and the customer notified that the job's been concluded. We've got that running in fly tipping, and we've seen a massive improvement in terms of the performance, in terms of clearing, and also the feedback loops back to customers. We've set it up as a trial in bulky household goods, so again another neighbourhood services area where we're able to join up the customer with the issue to the person that's going to resolve it. And we're currently exploring other options with Meals on Wheels in social care, again to try and improve the overall customer experience and efficiency. And I think this thing's going to go pretty much wherever we want it to. The results it's generating are pretty staggering in terms of efficiency, taking out unnecessary steps in the process, making sure jobs get done more quickly and people get to know about that in a much more efficient manner.
Yeah, just going back to customer satisfaction for a moment, do we monitor online as well, like sort of social media, what people are saying about customer service, etc.? Because I've seen over the last few weeks, particularly people being, really happy about the app and stuff. I mean, whether they're giving that feedback through the direct channels is anyone's guess, but they're sort of saying it on Facebook groups and things.
I would say that that's probably anecdotal at this stage. We do have some technology called social mining technology, which effectively manages your social media channels, and it looks for particular phrases, whether they're positive, negative phrases, and so on. But our experiments to date would suggest that perhaps the Welsh sense of humour on occasion can confuse those kind of systems. Certainly sarcasm doesn't get recorded in the way it's intended. So we've not progressed those as a matter of course, but I think that's something that we'll look to add in, because we're getting more and more people using those social media channels, not just to engage with us, but to comment upon us. And I think that's probably some of the more relevant and more up-to-date feedback that we could be getting without really expending too much effort in getting hold of it.
Mary?
I mean, obviously, you're aiming to get feedback to the person who's telephoned with a problem as soon as possible, and that's great. Could I make a plea that we get that same prompt feedback as councillors? Because on occasions I've been told, following perhaps councillor surgery or a midnight phone call from one of my constituents, and I have emailed, and I'm given the ticket number and it will be dealt with, but we don't from some areas get any feedback on that. I assume things have been done, and it's only when I turn up for my next councillor's surgery a month later when people say nothing was done that I realise.
It's an interesting point, because you mentioned the fact that you would normally email those in and they would be generated. Are you using the app?
I use the members line if I'm phoning. Yeah.
Right, okay. I'm just thinking through what the app provides, and it might be something that we can trial if it's of particular interest to you. But I'm fairly certain that the app provides a kind of advocate option, so that you as a member could raise the call through it on someone's behalf, and as a matter of course would then be updated.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that when we're told that it has been recorded and it will be seen to, it would be good if we could be told what the outcome is.
Yeah, and I think it would also be helpful if you and I could sit down and just explore whether there's some simple ways to address those issues immediately, if you're okay with that.
I was just going to add that sometimes the app seems a bit clunky, as the word one might use. And when members use the member system, certainly in your neighbourhood, it's because the response is probably a bit more immediate.
I think that's probably a challenge for me to sort out then, isn't it? Making the app the tool of choice for members as well as the online community. There's no reason why it should be clunky. We'll take feedback from all quarters on how it can be improved, and we continue to do that. The benefits, of course, with the app, as I've already mentioned, is if we do decide to make a change to it, we deploy it within seconds, so it's instantaneous.
It's interesting that we exist with other services around our part of Cwmbran, i.e. Trolleywise is one. Their app is incredibly clunky, and people complain about that, and you find it actually quicker to go after them on Twitter or something like that. But it's interesting, you know. So it's not just us that has that problem with apps. It's a method of channel shift, isn't it? You know, whatever media you go after it with.
It is. I mean, what I would say is, when we talk to other organisations, we're a long way down the track. Some organisations haven't got websites that are able to deal with the kind of inquiries that our app deals with. So it's good that we're making that progress. It's good that we're that kind of organisation. We've got a long way to go, and certainly we're not, you know, we're no comparison to some of the bigger businesses and the approaches that you will find in that online space. But you know, this is a plea to members moving forward, really. If there's anything about any aspect of the service, whether it's online or otherwise, that you're not comfortable with, then just pick the phone up to me. I'm very happy to have that feedback and try and act upon it.
Thank you, and I do love the idea that you don't measure sarcasm yet. I do think that maybe we should do, because that it would, wouldn't it? Thank you very much indeed. Anybody? I would say anybody, but I think we finished on this one. Thank you. Yeah, sure. Right. Next item is procurement. And I do get the name right on this one as well. Andrew Measy. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Andrew.
Yep. Andrew Macy, Head of Procurement.
Yeah. The first bullet point on this, Steve?
Andrew, good afternoon. Local businesses have the opportunity to obtain advice regarding public sector procurement. How are they made aware that this advice is available?
There are various communications put out on Sell to Wales, so they get information regarding various events that are going on. And then you've got the Business Development Service, who advertise it as well. And obviously, if they make contact to the council, and a lot of people do, and they get usually pushed through to myself or a colleague of mine. And we invariably refer them either to Sell to Wales, or we provide them with advice directly.
You want to come back on that, Steve?
Yeah. Well, these all follow together, don't they? Because it's like one question split into three. Yeah, the plan to report to members, etc., in respect to this, but it's trying to establish what the uptake is with the businesses locally, and at the same time coming in behind that, a plan to report to members in April 2016, what action is being taken to follow this report should any adverse impact be identified. It's sort of one links into the other. Okay, and the other one that links into it is significant opportunities of being on a national procurement service framework. Please expand on these benefits. So I suspect that you will answer all of that in your statements.
Thank you for asking.
Okay, well, if I take them hopefully one by one, and if I miss one, if you could just chip in and tell me. But in terms of the opportunities, I mean, there are opportunities by, instead of people just, local businesses bidding for Torfaen, they bid in for other authorities. I've got an example for you. A bit of concern for me when the National Procurement Service went out for printing, because obviously we've got a few local printers, and So there's a good side and there's a bad side. You know, one of our printers didn't get on the framework, but two did. And one of those is the company that took over from NWL. And obviously they've taken on and put a lot of investment into Pontypool. And they've won a place on the framework. It doesn't guarantee them business, but, you know, they're very aggressive in trying to secure business. But instead of, you know, finding it difficult to get opportunities, they are on one of the framework lots for the region, which is the Gwent, RCT and Merthyr. So they've got an opportunity there. And we've got another provider as well, Sargent Brothers, on that same lot. And then Zenith, the company has taken over MWL, they're on all Wales lots. So they've got a massive opportunity. And okay, the one that hasn't got on the framework, they're at a disadvantage. But the companies I've spoken to are delighted to be on there and really want to give it a go.
Anybody else from these questions? Would you like to come back a bit?
Chair, can I just sort of carry on about the sort of the report that I'm trying to do? It's a very difficult report to try to pull together because, you know, it's all about have they lost business from us? Well, they've picked up some business, you know, but how much they're going to gain from the contract, it'll be a couple of years before I can tell you how that's gone. And whether that's a direct influence on whether they've got on the framework or not, almost impossible. But it'll give an idea of where we are. So it's not a simple report to come up with, and it'll be more sort of broad lines that they've been awarded a place on the framework or they haven't.
We've covered all three of these questions we've had here. Members who've got any more questions on that? I think. Yeah, you've gone.
You know, we go to sort of supplier events, and Council Hunters, you know, it helps out with those as well. And we've gone to them and we've given quite a bit of advice to them, and they've picked up my details and they've come through to me. There was one company who was trying to bid for the tyres framework, and they were never going to be in a position to do it on their own. And they were trying, to be fair to them, they were trying to get a consortium together. And, you know, I don't think they were particularly successful with it, but at least they were trying, and I give them quite a bit of support.
Thank you there. That's great. Thank you, Andrew. That's brilliant. Next is managing early departures, and that's Nigel. I'm going to trap. Now you can introduce yourself.
Anyone not know me? Nigel Rayleigh, Assistant Chief Executive, and Tracy Harris is just up there to answer any other questions in Graham's absence.
Okay. Okay. Who wants the first bullet point? And don't mix. There's only two here. Okay, Phil. Now you can have a go.
Afternoon, both.
Afternoon, Councillor.
Thank you. The risk assessment form was in its infancy at the time of scrutinising managing early departures. How has this been embedded?
It's been used extensively now this year, probably for the first time as part of this trawl of voluntary redundancies. So in terms of pulling together the learning from it, we're still just a little bit early. We're actually working through all the expressions of interest in voluntary redundancy now, and the risk assessment form is intrinsically linked to that. So the process of completing it is embedded. It's far more extensively been completed this time by chief officers, far more owned this time. But in terms of coming back to you with, well, what does that tell us? How has that helped us? We need to work through this process, through the budget, which is only over the next few weeks. And then Graham will be able to actually say, you know, the beneficial impact of that risk assessment form. What I would say is I think it has made chief officers even more acutely aware of rearranging the service impacts that go when a voluntary redundancy is taken. So, you know, service reorganisation, a service change rather than just taking the post.
Chair, could I just add to that, or reinforce what Nigel has just said there? I mean, it has become much more embedded this time round. It was a new process last time, and it was something that we discussed, you know, and consulted with the trade unions on very closely. They welcome this stage in trying to, you know, get chief officers to think more closely and carefully about the impact that that such a departure would have on, you know, other staff who are within the service. So we hope that it will, you know, it will certainly assist the process going forward.
What actually have you done with the heads of service and chief officers to put that in place? That's an obvious question there, I think.
What we've done is obviously we've circulated that assessment at the, you know, to assist them in their decision making and to you know, have that in mind when they're considering all the applicants that they've received. So when they're assessing each applicant individually, it kind of makes them more acutely aware of what the impact will be on the rest of the service then, should they consider to let that person go. So.
Any more questions on that one? So you like the second question on that area? Who wants to go with that one? Jess?
The Work Smart appraisal. How many employees completed the process? When will the results be examined? And what action are we expecting to take based on the results?
Ooh, that's a set of detail I'm not carrying totally in my oh yeah, I got the question. It's trying to recall the statistics. Where it's going is there's a corporate performance assessment session, which is a meeting of cabinet and chief officers. The results are going there tomorrow. In terms of the take-up, it is much more significant than it has been before. Parts of the organisation did it really well, and there was a good take-up. I particularly recall neighbourhood services being very good. So we're certainly cracking that area where they don't have access to computers and generally wouldn't have had Work Smarts in the past. One or two areas which were not so good. In terms of the absolute numbers, I would have to just circulate them to the committee, but I think it was something like out of 2,000, you know, something like 1,200 or 1,300 were either completed or in train or had something. So it was significantly more than it used to be. But tomorrow, as I say, is going to the corporate performance assessment session. It is a bit of a name and shame, I think, you know, in terms of, well, you did it, you know, why aren't you at 100%? But I don't, you know, rather than guess the figures, we can circulate them quickly to members of resources. Yeah.
You can come back to us with it.
Oh, absolutely. Graham will send the figures round to the committee.
Yeah. Any more questions on that one? You?
It's kind of a supplementary, please, Chair. This is great that this is being done, the Work Smart appraisal, and especially the bit about other skills and qualifications, particularly for you know, redeployment of staff. And to what extent is the information that's being derived from that, how is that stored? Because I don't think that information has been stored on Profile previously, has it? I think in terms of enabling staff redeployment, I think this was raised before, that we didn't really have a common platform across all areas. Now I understand that that's not going to be entirely possible for some areas. For example, the education service and the police service have different mechanisms. But within Torfaen, the information that's been derived from this appraisal, this WorkSmart appraisal, I wanted a bit more information in terms of how that is being stored and utilised, and trying to commonality of platforms, really.
That's probably another one for Graham to come back in absolute detail, but it is all stored now within I4. Everyone has completed these WorkSmart appraisals within the I4 system, which is our payroll system and expenses and whatever, so it's now all recorded. We've only just come to the end of the actual close down period for that. So human resources and employee services will be looking at that data, looking to extract that data, looking to try and make the links with Profile then, so that we use that data in a sensitive but also sensible way for the organisation. So that's the next stage of the journey of WorkSmart. It's not on bits of paper now, it is actually within the I4 system, so it is extractable by human resources and employee services to make the very links that the commentary in there is talking about.
So it's using both systems side by side, really?
Yeah.
So the general stuff is available on that as well, is what you're saying?
When you say general stuff, what people have completed in terms of all their WorkSmarts and their development needs is all within their WorkSmart appraisal, which is stored electronically within I4. If it's stored electronically, it can be extracted and it can be manipulated and it can be analysed and it can be used, whether that's in the Profile system or any other medium that we want to do so.
And that's common across all departments now?
Absolutely. Everyone is using the I4 system for WorkSmart appraisals. No one is using paper.
Any supplementaries there? No? Well, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
Mary. Oh, Mary. Oh, Mary.
Yeah,
come on, Mary.
Across the public service sector. How will that square, do you think, with the UK government treasury desire to put a cap on the 100k exit package that some people can have when they leave, bearing in mind we could be into mergers with 22 chief executives and others, all looking to relocate because that 100k contains the pension pot as well, and they're going to be, I think, bringing a proviso that you cannot be redeployed or re-employed in another public sector area within, a certain time period. How do you, how can you square the desire of the Welsh government with the desire of the UK government on that particular issue? Or should we just have a revolution?
I think that's a question for politicians to answer, actually, rather than officers. My latest understanding on the cap is that there's revised consultation out that may be pushing it beyond the 31st of March. Welsh Government is still considering its position, because my understanding is they can't actually mandate the devolved administrations to follow suit, but obviously that there's a lot of politics swimming around in that. So on the exit cap, I think we just got to wait to see what happens between the Welsh government and the English government on that. In terms of the making people redundant and then being re-employed, the Staff Commission are starting to do work on this, and it's referenced in the paper around the People Exchange Cymru and the risk sharing protocol, where if there are jobs, the jobs are going to be predominantly, I would guess, in the health and then the social care sector, but the health sector, that's where the resources is going. Well, there needs to be some way to allow staff to transfer from one organisation to another organisation where terms and conditions are different and people will want their redundancy rights protected. So I think the Staff Commission are trying to work on a risk-sharing protocol where the old employer bears a bit of risk, the new employer bears a bit of risk, and so does the employee. And then you avoid the situation where people have got to be made redundant at a cost, say, to Torfaen, to then be re-employed wherever it is. Whereas we could, transfer them across. There may be a period of time where, if in that period they then got made redundant, they would want to retain their their previous terms and conditions. So I think that's where the Staff Commission and Welsh Government can make a lot of progress in making some sense of that. As to the exit cap, I think that's between ministers, between Welsh Government and Mr Osborne.
Can I just add to what Nigel has said there? There is some work ongoing to develop a public service portal which which will encourage the mobility across the public sector. With the general intention would be that all public service organisations would be able to advertise their vacancies through the portal, and that will encourage redeployment between the sector much more easily. So that's still a work in progress, but looks to be on the horizon in the not too distant future.
Thank you for that. Any idea how long that horizon is likely to be? Oh, is that another political decision?
I think it's reasonably imminent. I don't think it's long away. I think the debate at the moment is around whether they go onto that portal and they're advertised just there first before they go wider, or whether they go wider and on the portal. I think it's getting down into that very narrow bit of detail now to be sorted out. So I wouldn't have thought it's long away at all.
Everybody have their say on this one? Good. Oh, thank you very much indeed, and skillfully out of the way of that one. Okay, next item is energy management, and that's Paul. You can introduce yourself as well.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Paul Evans. I'm the Property Management Group Leader. I'm recently taken energy on as well, so I'm here looking at that.
I'm going to ask the first question, and that's because I like energy. And a bit of a wonk on it. Right, recommendation 1, January 2016 update, page 41. Draft energy strategy completed, awaiting consultation. What timescales were involved? Right, isn't that slow enough?
Yes, that's fine. The draft energy strategy is being issued to this committee now for review.
Yeah.
Once we get feedback from that, we were looking to do some consultation with stakeholders within the council only. We don't think it needs to be much wider than that at that stage. Yeah. Following that then, as long as we get the strategy signed off, we then be looking to progress on developing some plans of projects. So what we would be looking to do to reduce the carbon reductions and potentially look at any income investments.
Is that imminent? I can't say the word imminent, can I? Yeah, imminent.
We're simply waiting for feedback from this committee at the moment, and then we can make a move on it.
Yeah, okay. Next bullet point, somebody wants recommendation 2?
Yes.
From there, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was still on. I think what we need is to have a flyer out to community halls, particularly those perhaps that are totally independent of, any liaison with the council. And Jackie Rue, Community Halls Officer, is very good at doing this, because I know that in some cases she has saved a remarkable amount of money for some community halls because, of the advice that they should have one supplier instead of 2, one for electricity, one for gas, etc. But not all community halls are aware of the potential. Obviously, we can't make the ultimate decision for them, but it would be useful if they were supplied with that information. And schools as well, if they haven't already been.
Yeah. Okay, 2 there. One community halls, the other schools. The schools will come up a bit later on, I'm sure, because there's an appointment of a school's energy officer now. In regard to the community halls, I know Alan has met with Jackie, and he's been out to a couple of community halls to see exactly what type of information they're looking for. He wanted to do that to gauge where this flyer or the signposting information he can provide is what information they're looking for. And he's come back now saying, well, it's primarily general advice. There's advice around billing, as you say, what we can do to save money around that, energy efficiency advice, but also advice around bodies that would provide grants and financial support as well. So he's done a little bit of it. That one is at the moment down to kind of Alan's resources, really, when he can pull that together and get that across to Jackie. But exactly what you're saying, Gunaira, he's certainly looking at liaising with Jackie on that to get out to call community halls. Timescales around that one is a little bit sketchy, though. I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen yet. Is that all right?
Chair, could I just seek some clarification? Do I need to declare an interest, as I'm the chairman of the CoStar Partnership, which has got a lease on a community hall? Good, thank you.
With, I was just going to ask, you said about Alan and resources. Are we still fairly problematical in that direction?
Well, Alan has to prioritise his work. Obviously, he's 3 days a week at the moment. I think it's going to help dramatically now the energy officer for education is in post. So we're looking to sort of sit down with Alan and decide what his priorities are going to be. The one is certainly the energy strategy, looking at that and developing some projects. We're also looking at some Welsh Government possibility of funding around Invest to Save. So those have got tight deadlines on them. So there is priorities at the moment, and we look forward then into the new year, into after April, to see where he's going to be with developing things like the community halls, flyers.
Thank you, that's brilliant. Next item on here is bullet point 3. Somebody want that one? Yeah.
The school's energy officer is now in post. What priorities will they be focusing on?
They sit under energy. They sit under the education department. So the priorities for them would be decided by, I think Sarah Pugh is their direct line manager. But we have met with them already, and I know part of the package of work they're doing at the moment is going around the schools, looking at a few of the individual schools to see if there is some opportunities to develop this Invest to Save budget that I just mentioned. So I know she's been out there, she's engaged with some of the schools. It's all looking good at the moment. It's early days. I think she's only been in post about a week at the moment, well, a couple of days, I think. So, yeah, it's early days, but certainly the initial discussions we've had has been really positive. Seems that there's quite a lot she's going to go out and do, but as regard to priorities, that wouldn't be a call for myself, sorry.
Could I just make I'm glad to see this is in post, because I mean, thank you for the visit that we went when we did do this, because it was really quite impressive seeing what you can do with schools in that one visit, and I presume that will be building on the type of experiences you've had as a department with it. Yeah. I'd make that observation, because that was quite impressive when we went to Cranbridge.
Good, yeah. Well, Cranbridge is one of the very high BREEAM excellence scored for their energy efficiency, and yeah, so it's a very good school to go and look at. That was.
That type of expertise.
I think so, but I think her role is primarily not around sort of the new build around the schools and so on. That's a matter for the construction side of neighbourhood services teams. What this energy officer post has got the opportunity to do is work with schools, develop curriculum within schools around energy management and all that kind of thing, as well as looking at energy savings, carbon reductions and potential income investment for them. So I think that's my understanding primarily of the role, but again, education will probably be able to clarify that better for you.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the draft energy strategy report, much of the answers that you've given have been focusing on the work that's been undertaken on schools. And you mentioned that there was this budget available, the Invest to Save, I think it's called Invest to Save Future Fund. Will the report encompass additional carbon reduction within and income generation within other council offices, rather than just focusing on schools? And also, does the report encompass energy management within street lighting, for example, in terms of upgrades to the LED street lights?
Yeah, the strategy document is fairly open. It doesn't discount anything around any of our buildings or assets, including land. In regard to the emphasis being on schools, I think that is mainly because they are our highest energy users. And that's why we want to focus on those buildings in particular. But that doesn't preclude us looking at other parts of the estate as well. The limit for Invest to Save on, say, some of our corporate buildings is pretty minimal. There's not a massive amount of things we can do to those buildings to improve the energy efficiency and get a good payback period on any investment we would have to make. But we're not discounting it, we still look at it. But certainly schools seems to be the area where we can make a bigger difference to our carbon commitments. Does that answer your question?
Thanks. The chair knows where I'm going with this because I'm you touched on it. Payback times have fallen and costs have fallen significantly with regards to photovoltaic solar panels. Payback times now are 6.5 years and the lifespan of 20 to 25 years. So it makes sense really for investigation, further utilisation of solar photovoltaic panels on council offices and additionally for any energy consumption that's above and beyond what's being used, there's a potential for income from feed-in tariffs. I know that's been diminishing, but there's still potential there. And likewise with regards to the street lighting, the lower maintenance costs, the cost of the LEDs have come down now as well, and the ongoing running costs are significantly less than the old traditional style street lighting. So this is why I was trying to focus. I know you say the schools are primarily the main energy users, but would we also potentially look at the ability of exploiting any available sites that we had for energy generation?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're not discounting anything at the moment. I think the points you make are quite valid. There are still some opportunities there. We've recently done some checks around just replacing lighting. So the Civic Centre has certainly benefited from that, and we've changed the lighting to high energy efficiency lighting. Now, what we're finding is the paybacks on those tends to be around the 8 to 10 year period. So that's getting into the future a little bit more. It's not to say we won't still explore it or look at doing it, but it is the fact that the schools use the most of the energy, and that's the ones we want to work on first. But we will be in tandem looking at the other buildings as well. We actually met with a lady from Green Growth Wales this morning to talk again around our full strategy, around what we were looking at on energy, and on them we picked up certain income generation opportunities. There's maybe something we can do where we've got large generators on site to sell some of that energy back to the grid. There's lots of options that we're looking at. There are just a few I can mention at the moment. But she was also talking about, well, is there areas of land we can look at? And we've certainly done that in the past, and hopefully from drafting the new strategy and bringing out the new strategy, we would look to cover those areas as well within that. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugh, for bringing that up. Obviously, we've got the heat source pump down the manor as well, haven't we? Yeah. We rather like that, don't we? I showed the MP that, by the way, after. He rather had a photograph of him with that. That's still the only one we got, isn't it?
That's the
air source pump, yes.
Wasn't it?
Yes. Big refrigerator going backwards. Right. Yes, very, very impressive. The last one on this, can somebody do that one for us? Councillor Brooks? Yeah.
I ticked it off. Right, this where resources are available, further training will be undertaken. By securing resources for training, will this not save more in the long run?
Sorry, this is around raising staff awareness around the energy. Okay, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of things we're looking into around this, and maybe not essentially training anymore. I know there used to be a programme of training staff around energy efficiencies. Again, Alan's time and resources to do that is very difficult, but we could look at delivering that in a different way if it is essential and we need to do it. What we are looking to try and do is utilise technology a bit better. So we're looking at taking our energy management system that holds all the information and the data on each individual site where we spend our money, and we're doing that web-based. That's something that we've actioned recently. That will give the opportunity then for people like premises managers, site managers, head teachers to actually view directly what energy their building is using on a sort of half-hour meter reading basis. So they'll certainly have a better idea then of things they are trying. Is it working? Isn't it working? And they can keep a better handle on where their energy bills are going up or down. So we certainly do that. We've done a programme of fitting automatic meters. So the automatic meters help us again with having this team system now on a web base and accessible by all. They can view it, and if you get things like leaks in your water pipes, because we've got quite a few old water pipes around there, they can see instantly then, as long as they're logging in and checking it, whether there's a high water demand or a low water demand, or essentially whether there's water happening in the middle of the night when there doesn't need to be. So that's all what we see as raising awareness around the key people then who are managing the buildings. The other thing we were considering doing, again, is once we know what projects we're going to deliver, but it's also feeding out that information around those projects to the wider council and potentially to the community. So we've just done a project around street lighting again, where we're going to renew a certain amount of street lights. I can't remember exactly the number. And we're going to work with comms team on that to get that out to the community, to tell them sort of what that has saved the authority in energy use as well. So we're doing those areas, those ones we think we can deliver within the resource base we've got now. The actual staff training, we think, is something that we need to look into.
Thanks for that. It's a moving feast by the sounds of it.
Thanks for that, Paul. I mean, that was one of the things that we came across from that visit, was about how your guys were getting au fait with all that and integrating stuff in, and obviously training of staff in schools and other establishments to use the kit. And if you obviously then integrating it in with the comms equipment, that makes a lot of sense. That's what we certainly came away from like that. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution. Thank you. Yeah. Right, next item on the agenda, that's the last one at the moment, is implementation of the Welsh language standards. And that's Mr. Puddy. Would you like to introduce yourself, Lyndon?
Afternoon, committee. My name's Lyndon Puddy. I'm head of PSSU.
Pardon? Oh, sorry, I'm getting
Afternoon, my name's Lyndon Puddy. I'm head of PSSU.
Right.
Afternoon, Lyndon. Recommendation 1, January 2016 update, page 45. Has any response been received from the Welsh Language Commissioner?
As per the request from scrutiny, we wrote to the Welsh Language Commissioner's office at the latter part of 2015, outlining some of the concerns raised by committee here, as well as some other wider concerns that we had. We haven't received a response from the Commissioner's office to the letter we sent. The letter we sent indicated that we intended to appeal a number of the standards.
Any further questions on that one? Bullet point 2, what's that one? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Lyndon. Yeah. Yes. There's an appeal process, which is what you just alluded to. What are the timescales on that? Do we know?
Yeah, the timescale for submission of the appeal, should local authorities wish to make that move, is the 31st of March 2016. In relation to our own appeal, and there's certain elements that we have asked Council for opinion on the merits of the appeal that we've submitted. Obviously, that is in the hands of, it's our intention to submit that, and we're seeking Council's view on, as I said, the merits of success of some of the elements we put in there. We have yet to receive the formal feedback from Council on that.
Okay, the update says that the Welsh Language Officer is building strong links with Welsh language schools and groups. So how is he doing that, and what advice and assistance are these schools and groups providing in regards to the implementation of the Welsh language standards?
We built up a real good rapport with some of the schools. In fact, we had one of the learners from School of Gwynthrew who came to work within our team last year, and subsequently we employed that young person for the duration of the school holidays to help us in developing some of the activities we got. We've also got very firm links with the local Welsh language groups we've got, and one of the Welsh language groups which is set up in one of the churches that's just down the road there has offered to help us assist us in the implementation of the standards. So I would say that we are making good local connections here, but it's a very small team and there's a lot of pressure on that unit at the moment to be making preparations for the standards.
Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned YGG, and this is going off at a tangent really, but I am curious. Has the senior officer team given any consideration for the effect that the deferment of the opening of the new Welsh secondary school in Newport might have on our own provision at YGG? Because as you know, I mean, it's been in all the media, the refusal of planning permission means that the school could be delayed for 1 or 2 years.
I wouldn't be able to answer that at this point, Councillor Barron.
Okay.
Next question, please. Go on, Jess. Go on, finish it off, Jess.
IT colleagues have been cited in this issue, but should we not be preparing for full implementation of standards within the IT structure?
Yes, they are cited, and it's been raised as one of the more larger concerns that we have. That without the lack of real in-depth guidance from the Commissioner's Office, and I don't mean that as a criticism, but when you're usually implementing legislation, you usually have a code of guidance that comes along, which is quite prescriptive around what each element means. We've written to the Commissioner as part of our response, really asking around, and I've had conversations with colleagues down in the office here to try to understand some of those elements. There are some unknowns, and therefore we are progressing with the standards, but we are progressing those in how Torfaen will interpret those, and we are developing those elements. The one thing we should always keep on the radar is that a number of our systems that we have operating in Torfaen are UK-based systems. They're not necessarily systems that are multilingual, or they're able to adapt quite quickly to different linguistic needs. Where we're able to, and we've got telephone apps that are helping us to reach some of those elements of bilingual provision. But when you look at some of the central systems that we've got, particularly, I'm thinking IVOR, for instance, which is our electronic version of controlling our HR side of it, we've had a general idea of some costings in there, and it's in hundreds of thousands of pounds to be able to make that provision work. So there are concerns that we may not be able to meet the standards, A, because it's not available, we don't know whether, if it is available, whether developers would be prepared to develop it, because there's developmental costs to do with that, and no doubt those developmental costs would be handed down to the users. So it is very much on our radar. But where we can comply, we would hope to, but it may be, and we have suggested this, there may be parts of the provision where we just won't be compliant.
Steve?
It's sort of along that line, and Lyndon has referred to it before. We were dealing with matters concerning the Welsh language and everything some time ago, and there were some quite frightening figures, which at the time I think it was fair to say that were being a little bit guessed, perhaps. But they were frightening figures as to the cost of being able to bring all of this into focus. And I think at the time that people were a little bit sort of negative about this, because they're saying, crikey, we've got all of this austerity, we've got to make cuts and everything here, and we were talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds to make equipment that we've already got working perfectly to be bilingual. Where are we at with all of that, Lyndon? Have you, I noticed that you seem to be fairly calm at the present moment, but I mean, this money is, it seems to be off the planet. Is there, you know, has somebody tripped over £1 billion down the road that we can use to put this right?
I'm sure if they had, my colleague Mr Aurelius would have had his eyes on any additional funding that was available to us. With the very best will in the world, when you look at some of the implementation elements around what's the standards could mean, there are significant costs in interpretation costs, in simultaneous translation costs, in a guesstimate around how much it would cost for IT provision. So they are, you know, I got no basis really to say these are definitive costs, but they do correlate with a lot of my colleagues around Wales, and Wrexham and in other areas where their costs are in the hundreds of thousands of pounds through full implementation. We are looking at what would be the worst case scenario for implementation, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing our job, I wouldn't have thought, if we're not trying to look at, you know, what could be the worst possible case scenario for us. There are, we have done a sheet of indicative costs, or what they, and I think we've shared that previously with committee here. Our view from that hasn't changed in relation to what the potential costs could be. What we are looking to do is to obviously try to work our way through the imposition dates, which are, you know, they come into force on the 30th of March. 31st of March this year. The first strand and the second strand come in on the 1st of September this year. So we are working with our colleagues. Alan Vernon-Jones is out already with the with various SMTs across the council and our colleagues, really, to have a look at what the standards will mean to each of those areas that we are working towards in order to be able to comply with the standards, and a number of those we already comply with. You know, it's not as if we're starting from a standing foot. You know, we have got a fair way to go, but there are other elements of the standards that, you know, we will need to put a Torvine interpretation on. And my colleague Mr Maisie there, you know, we discussed the provision around procurement the other day, and the understanding of what that would actually mean in reality, bearing in mind that I think as an authority, when you consider our last census indicated around about 10% of the population use Welsh. Now I don't know whether that's 10% that are fluent Welsh or various degrees of ability to use the language, but we do know our workforce is less than 2%. So there are difficulties for us to overcome, and that's perhaps where some of the more significant costs would come from, if to add that sort of provision in. I'm thinking particularly around reception facilities and being able to do translation services.
Thank you, Lyndon. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. It's a very difficult thing for you to answer. Appreciate that.
If we did nothing, Linda, what would the cost be to the council then?
The Commissioner has the power to fine the local authority for each breach that we are found guilty of. That breach is £5,000 per breach. That's should the Commissioner decide to go down that route. I would imagine that in previous conference I was in, the Commissioner stated in that conference that she wouldn't be using these standards as a policing tool, so I would imagine there would be opportunities for us to be putting a case forward that the work that we would be in development, because I don't think any local authority in Wales will be hitting the ground running on this, particularly around, because it needs a lot of understanding around what it means to each of those local authorities. Even some where the most, where the workforce has a more significant cohort of Welsh speakers, will have difficulty in meeting all of the standards to the expected levels there.
So with the percentage of Welsh users within Torfaen, would it not be cheaper to go down that route and to pay the fines and to implement the...
I mean, we are a local authority. The standards are a legal compliance for us to be adhering to. I wouldn't, I would imagine is reputational risk for the council should we be embarking on those avenues. But there's also opportunity for the local authority to be putting a case forward to some of the reasons why we can't make some of the standards at some time. It would obviously be a decision of whomever's to go down that route, but we are trying desperately. We have highlighted those standards that we think will have the most significant impact on the council in what the Commissioner's criteria is what's reasonable and what's proportionate, and that is the response that we've gone back with, and it's the ideology that I intend to put together in the report that I'm preparing from colleagues in leadership team around the interpretation of what the standards mean in a reasonable, proportionate way to Torfaen.
Thank you. Is any more on that? I think we've rather exhausted that. Thank you, Lynn. You will let us know as soon as you know what the Commissioner's got to say to us. Yeah, thank you. That's brilliant. Thank
Chair.
You. Just a minute, Phil.
Would it be possible to have those costings again, please, Lynn, and redistributed? Thank you.
That's something, yes, thank you for that point.
It does come with a very big, careful mark on it, because they are estimates, not actuals.
I think that's not a... Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Can I just feed some information into the committee from my earlier slot? Because I've got the information now that's going to the CPA session tomorrow on work smart reviews, so that you can minute it. Of an employee count that should have been doing them of 2,088, some 71.12% of people either started or completed it in full, and there's nearly 54% had completed it in full. So 71% have been started by the employee and probably haven't been signed off by the manager, and 54% have been.
Pardon?
Just sum this up a second then.
Yeah, you sum this up. Yeah.
Thank you, members. So you've gone through all the updates now for each of the items that you've previously considered. If I just run through them quickly one by one, just to check that you haven't got any further recommendations or concerns on the progress. So external funding, obviously it was detailed that progress has not been made as you'd recommended, but I'm assuming that you appreciate the reasons why that Rob gave. Yeah. Also, I didn't notice anything for information technology that you brought up. Channel shift, Ed mentioned that the channel shift strategy, a draft version is in place, so I don't know whether you want to take a look at that in some form down the line. And also more of an action point, Councillor Barnett to meet with Richard Edmonds to discuss some of the feedback about the telephony system. Yep. Procurement, I didn't note any further recommendations unless members...
channel shift. I know that it was to meet with Mary, but separately the Welsh language, just so that you could check that up.
Yeah.
Procurement, I didn't make a note of any recommendations for that one, no. Again, nothing for managing early departures. You're happy with the progress on those? Yeah. Energy management, again, there's a draft policy in place, so whether the committee take a look at that and feed into that, yeah. And then for the implementation of the Welsh language standards, you'd like the response from the Commissioner once that's received, and as an action point, the estimates again from Lynn.
Scope for us to write to the Commissioner either from us or from the exec member, just stating that we're disappointed that the guidance still hasn't come out because, you know, it's this very slow.
Thank you, Chair. Myself and Councillor Daniels are going down to a meeting tomorrow down in Cardiff where the Welsh Language Commissioner is going to be down there, to which we take that opportunity to ask for the guidance. We must also be aware that whilst we're asking for council advice, I'd rather not be putting anything forward that may muddy the waters around our potential appeal that's going into on the standards at this point in time, Chair.
Okay.
If I may, please, Chair, may I ask a general question? I think this is great that we've got this meeting today to look at the impact of the recommendations update. Obviously, this report is focusing on the recommendations that's been put forward by this particular committee. Now, I didn't realise until this meeting that we had this particular mechanism in place, which I think is great. Can I make, first off, ask if other committees have this particular mechanism in place, and if they don't, can I suggest that there's something that they,
this is something that was put in place last July. All committees received an update. Obviously, there's more information in it now because you've gone through more committee cycles, but all committees will be taking it this cycle.
Because
Cleaner already have, resources have.
So, perhaps in the reporting then, if we add an additional column at the end of where we've got here, accepted, rejected, noted, if we add another status button to say pending, in progress, awaiting feedback from Welsh Government or what have you, so that would be a suggestion. We can have something in there. But no, I think it's great because I was speaking to Richard Grinnell about this actually yesterday, funnily enough, in terms of having a mechanism for ensuring that the recommendations of the committees, where it's gone through the executive and it's come back on the report appended that the executive have agreed with the recommendation and decided to go ahead with it, to capture instances where perhaps action hasn't been taken. And the one example that sprang to mind was with regards, it wasn't with this particular Oversight and Scrutiny Committee, it was to do with Cleaner and Greener, where the committee recommended the acquisition of an additional gully sucker. And I was speaking to a council officer in the last couple of weeks, and I was surprised to learn that, in fact, we still only have one. Now, even though the committee had approved that. But, yeah.
Can I say that your point is a very good one? Can I take that to the informal chairs meeting?
But that is exactly why this report has been put into place. I mean, it's one thing to just have these recommendations accepted or whatnot, but as a committee you need to measure the impact that your recommendations are having to show that you are challenging the executive.
That is one to take back to informal scrutiny.
Add into service improvement.
That's quite a good one. Thank you.
Okay.
So the format of this meeting that we've had here today for this particular committee will be replicated for the other oversight and scrutiny committees as well.
It's already gone through Cleaner in January, and Healthier, Safer and Learning are still to come.
What I can do with that Adopted action plans.
Yeah, so members, as you'll be aware, often we get referred items from the Audit Committee. You had managing early departures, which you've already looked at, and also another one was whistleblowing, which the committee has not looked at as such yet, and whether you decide to take that forward is a matter for you to decide. But as a committee, you need to be satisfied with the progress that is being made against the recommendations that were put forward from the Audit Committee. So Nigel and Tracy are here if you have any questions on any of the progress updates for whistleblowing or managing early departures. And then we need to feed back whether you're happy with that progress, or if you have any further recommendations, we need to feed those back to the Audit Committee.
So, right. It's, would you like to come down, please? Just take us through that a bit. Members got any questions? So you stay there if you like. I don't know whether stay there. So you're coming down. Members got any questions? Whistleblowing and updates. Departures. Sorry.
Yeah. So the whistleblowing has gone through Ethics and Standards Committee, and also it's been a member seminar. So if you're happy with the progress, that's fine to just feedback that you're happy with the progress on those recommendations. Yeah. Obviously, you've looked at the managing early departures as well, so you're happy to say that you're happy with the progress against those as well.
It's 49.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're happy, so there's no questions. So, would you like somebody like to move it?
Yes.
A second? Yes, thank you. That's great, thank you, folks. Brilliant.
So the potential for the next item for the next round of scrutiny, the strategic equality plan needs to come to scrutiny before it goes before council. But obviously there's a couple more plans that we've gone through today, the energy management and the channel shift. So I don't know, obviously you've already scrutinised those as two major items, so whether you feel you may be able to look at all of them in one go, or would you just like to focus on the strategic equality plan for the next one?
I personally think we're looking at what they said about the energy and the channel shift, that there wouldn't be any point in bringing it back so soon because there'd be no significant movement, I don't think.
Well, as part of your recommendations, you've already fed into that partly as well, so whether okay, so just focus on that. So the strategic equality plan will be for the next one?
Yeah. Okay.
We'll keep that on the work programme for the future, yeah.
Okay.
Visioning will be in July. So we've got a cycle now in April, a cycle in June, and then visioning will be in July.
Okay. So we need to...
We've got the strategic equality plan to go to the April cycle, and then in that cycle we've still got other items in our basket that you may want to take in the June cycle. And then there'll be visioning to decide your new basket of items going forward for the next year.
So we've got...
So we've got the strategic equality plan. We had not public engagement, I'm thinking consultation process.
Consultation, yeah.
The strategic equality plan will take up the next meeting, going through that, because you haven't looked at that item previously.